Good morning, everyone. We're going to build our learning of last week of food chains and the different uh, levels of organization or their roles in the ecosystem. Today we're introducing trophic levels. So what you're going to need for today, a pencil or your science notebook or some paper, starting a new phrase that I hope will catch on. If it's red, use your lead, meaning if anything is red on the slides, that's meant for you to write down on your page or in your notebook to add to your notes. Last week, we did a little day of notes too, so if you used a notebook, you can go to the next page on that, or you just need to grab a different sheet of paper and keep all of your science notes together. Today's learning targets, there are two of them. We can identify the trophic levels in an ecosystem's food chain. We can describe how energy flows between trophic levels in an ecosystem. So for the learning target 1, we can identify trophic levels in an ecosystem's food chain. Trophic levels, this is a new term, is the group of organisms that occupy the same level or role in an ecosystem. So we see in this diagram over here, level 1 trophic levels will always be producers. They are the lowest level of organisms in the food chain. All producers, grass, flowers, trees, any type of plant, they'll all be level 1. Level 2 trophic levels are your primary consumers. Primary consumer was a term we learned last week. They all get their energy from producers. They are all herbivores, and the chain continues. Level 3 are all secondary consumers. Level 4 are all tertiary consumers. Level 5 are all quaternary, or in this case it is apex predators. All trophic levels end with apex predators or top consumers. Pause if you need to. So, an example food chain. What is each organism's trophic level? So the diatom is our producer. I'll give you that. The copepod is the primary consumer. The blue sprat is the secondary consumer. And the reef squid is our tertiary consumer. What trophic levels are they? Yes, the diatom, our producer, is trophic level 1. Copepod is trophic level 2. Blue sprat is trophic level 3. Reef squid is trophic level 4. And we can also identify the rest of the information. Last week we practiced predator-prey, primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, producers, herbivores, carnivores. We practiced this bottom part, but now we're adding in the trophic levels. This practice was a lot like your IXL last week. So, you've made it to the brain break. You can identify the trophic levels in an ecosystem's food chain now. Before continuing, pause the video and choose. Walk around the room for a minute. Do jumping jacks for 30 seconds to a minute. You can do 10 push-ups, 10 sit-ups, or you can do all of them. You can press play after you've given yourself a little bit of a break. How do organisms get their energy? So this is a review. Producers make their energy from sunlight. Mostly. They could be chemoautotrophs where they make energy from chemicals, but most producers are photoautotrophs. They make it from sunlight. Consumers, like the primary, secondary, tertiary, apex, they all must eat other organisms or organic matter for energy. Those are your herbivores, your carnivores, your omnivores, your scavengers, your decomposers. They are all consumers. And remember, the yellow arrows show the flow of energy between organisms. So the grasshopper gets energy by eating the grass. The mouse gets energy by eating the grasshopper. The snakes get energy by eating the mouse. The hawk or this eagle, the apex predator, gets energy by eating this snake. So, we can describe how energy flows between levels in an ecosystem. What do organisms use energy for? What do you think? You may have given a lot of different answers for this, but at the end of the day, they use energy to perform life functions. You have muscles working, digesting food, blinking, heart pumping blood. You have your lungs expanding, contracting. Anything that helps you live requires energy. Anything that you do requires energy, like thinking. Thinking requires a lot of energy. And you also have playing sports as an example. But anything we do requires energy. Even sleeping requires energy, because while you're asleep, your body is still working. Your brain is still functioning. Your heart is still pumping blood. Your digestive system is still processing food. Your body is still working, even though you are sleeping. So, what do organisms use energy for? They use it for life functions. They use it to live. So what happens to the energy in every trophic level? This is really interesting. This is really important. So energy in every trophic level is either used by an organism, is lost as heat as a result of living or doing work. Like when you work out or when you run, you sweat, you perspirate. It's lost as heat. Perspirating is sweating. Or it can be stored for later use. This storage is in your muscles, it's in your bones, it's in your fat, it's in everything that makes up you. That gets stored. You'll notice these arrows. 90% of all energy at each trophic level is used or lost as heat. 10% of all energy at the trophic level is stored. And that's at most. A lot of times it's even less. So what does this 90%, 10% mean? It means, with the help of this diagram, producers start with all the available energy in our ecosystem. They have 100% of the energy available. But they use 90% of it to grow. They use it to reproduce. They use it to survive. And those are the plants. 10% of that energy gets stored. That means our primary consumers, the herbivores, make up and get only 10% of that available energy. Hence, we go from 100% to 10%. Secondary consumers, so organisms that only eat plants, they get 1% of the available energy in the ecosystem. And those are our herbivores. Sorry. Secondary consumers are organisms that only eat. Primary consumers or lower. And so what you see, every level you go up, you lose energy. You are less efficient at using the energy. The rest of this energy gets lost as heat. So if you're an apex predator, at this apex predator quaternary level, plants start off with 100%. You see a small fraction of the available energy. So what does that mean? So say in your ecosystem there's 1,000 pounds of available producers. There's only going to be 100 pounds available of the primary consumers or the first order consumers. There's also only 10 pounds available energy for the second level or the intermediate predators, and then there's only 1 pound available for your top predators. That's important to know because the less amount of energy available there is, the fewer organisms that level can support. And so there's always going to be more producers in an ecosystem. There's always going to be not as many, but the second most abundant amount of organisms are your herbivores, the organisms that eat producers. Then organisms that can eat the primary consumers or possibly even the producers, there's going to be the next amount of organisms available in this intermediate level, level 3. And then your very, very top predators, your ecosystems can support only a few amount of them. There's not going to be a ton of them in the world. So we can check in, and this is where you can use your notes. 3 questions. What do organisms use energy for? What 3 things happen to energy in every ecosystem? How much energy is used or lost at each trophic level? Yep, they use energy to perform life functions. Energy is either used, is lost as heat, or is stored for later use. 90% of energy is lost or used at each level. Excellent work today, guys. Keep these with your notes. We're going to build on this tomorrow.